Welcome to Literary Latte, the podcast with a Southern accent on writing. I'm Lynda Bouchard. We did it! An entire podcast season, and what a wild ride it's been. This started as a side gig for my PR firm, which is dedicated to Southern authors, to spotlight the authors I work with. But it soon became a passion for me. So along with running my business, creating events, speaking engagements for my clients, traveling on the road with authors, writing articles, blog posts, volunteering for literacy councils, and going to yoga classes, I launched this podcast. Where do I find the time, you ask? I don't own a TV. And I don't cook. Yep, it frees up oodles of time to do productive, meaningful work and to have soulful experiences. Oh, and just for the record, I don't look this great all by myself. I have people. They're the ones who create the smoke and mirrors, who know way more than I do about technology and the back end of this podcast business. And they bring their A game every single time. I bow to my talented producer, David Wolf, and to the effervescent Cody Kratzer, web mistress extraordinaire. Yes, it's been an amazing year at the Literary Latte Studios, and I want to thank all of the authors and publishing pros who sat down with me to share their real world view from the trenches and their unique writing experiences. Yes, it's great stuff. Please listen to season 1 if you haven't already. I promise it won't be boring. So here we are, wrapping up the first season in a big bow and gearing up for a terrific new season beginning in January. I'll kick it off with an interview with Bill Thompson, a Kirkus book reviewer, where you'll get a cool insider perspective on how book reviewers really think and how, as an author, you can tip the scales in your favor. A North Carolina independent book publisher will be here to share insights on the ever-changing landscape of the publishing world. The prolific Mary Alice Monroe will stop by. I'll talk with a Southern cookbook author, and there will be plenty of fresh literary voices joining me with new Southern-laced works that supply the borderless demand for memorable, flawed characters depicted in colorful Southern settings. I learned something new from each author who joined me this season, but there was a common thread that ran through each interview. Every author talked about the serendipity of getting noticed in the writing world and how, more often than not, the detour became the main road for them. That can be encouraging or daunting, depending on how you look at it. I wasn't born in the South, so maybe that's why I appreciate the Southern eccentricities so much. And I think you will too when you listen to these interviews. I've worked with and traveled alongside Southern authors for over 20 years and have found that the South offers fuller moons and windier back roads, and that being raised in the South leaves an indelible mark on one's soul, where inspiration sprouts from fertile memories, the good and the bad, and lends to compelling stories. Southern stories are written experientially. An author might learn the mechanics of creative writing, but no classroom can replicate growing up and experiencing life in the South. And let's not forget the importance of the front porch to Southern storytelling. So much of the South is found any evening on the front porch, as the poet Adrian Rice shared with me in episode 4. Perhaps what I enjoy most about being a podcast host is that I always learn something new from my guests. For instance, I found out from each of them that people write for lots of reasons. Perhaps to save a family home from being sold to strangers. Maybe it's for revenge or to leave something behind so your children will know who you were and what you believed in. Or maybe you never thought of yourself as a writer, as author Lisa Patton shared in episode 10 and Tracy Curtis echoed in episode 2. But you got a wild hair, pulled up stakes in Tennessee, and bought a bed and breakfast in Vermont, where you meet bizarre and hilarious people. Then one night at a dinner, you just happen to share these stories with a famous guest who thinks you should write a book about it. So you do. Or perhaps you write to help others come to terms with an illness, as my dear friend and the author Ken Berger did. While he was fighting his own cancer diagnosis, he started a writing workshop for cancer patients at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. He knew all about the healing power of the pen. Every week, the group met in a small conference room within earshot of the nurse's station, and they shared their stories. It made them feel less alone. And as they shared their stories with fellow patients, many of them said they forgot all about their illness as they were writing. But there was also a sense of urgency. There is restorative power in the process of writing, because writing is always a process of self-discovery. And I'm glad you discovered Literary Latte. So give yourself a gift today and subscribe to Literary Latte on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. You won't want to miss a single episode of Season 2. Just click on one of the icons above. Easy peasy. And be sure to tell your friends, coworkers, and everyone you meet at the grocery store to subscribe. They'll thank you for it. We may not always be able to plainly define it, but we sure know when we have read a great Southern novel. When we come to the last page and close the book, we feel sad because it has ended. So here's to you, Southern writers, readers, lovers of the written word. Until next time, stay tuned and stay curious.
You've been listening to Literary Latte with Lynda Bouchard. For more information, visit bookingauthorsinc.com.